Hello and welcome to the Brodin Property Podcast. Expect to hear from real estate experts, giving us their thoughts on the property market and giving insight into what they hope for in the future. Take a moment to turn off, sit back and enjoy the latest edition of People and Property, the two Ps in a podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of People and Property, the two Ps in a podcast. My name is Aaron Higgins, the head of Brodin Property, and I'm joined today by Chris Keogh, who is the Director of Development and Operations at Court Collaborations, a specialist build-to-rent developer based in Birmingham. Hi Chris, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Aaron. Very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Chris, for those that don't know as much as I do and yourself about Court, can you give us a bit of an overview about who you guys are, what you do, and your role within the company, please?
Yes, absolutely. So firstly, thanks very much for having me, Aaron. Great to be with you and talk about the business. So founded 10 years ago by Anthony McCourt, who's our founder and chief executive, after he finished developing the Cube. After that, went into administration. Since then, the business has grown to about 12 people. With the managing director, Alex Neil, sitting above me, and then myself as Director of Development and Operations. As you say, we're a specialist build-to-rent developer, but we also do build-to-sell, and we're recently completed 225 build-to-sell units at Arden Gate in Birmingham City Centre, and we've got another 304, which are partially completed just a bit further down Bath Row behind the Penta Hotel on Holloway Head. So pretty active at the moment, always on the lookout for more sites. But, you know, we work with a number of investors with different appetites. That allows us to look at different site opportunities and decide, you know, who it works best for. Is it a build to sell? Is it a build to rent? Is it student? We've done some student as well. So we've got quite a few different ways in which we can develop schemes out and bring them to the market.
Perfect. And yeah, and I know from looking at your website and speaking to the market, you know, partnerships are something that you do look to do. You're not just always looking to go alone. And if there's a sort of JV or a relationship there, you're looking to partner with other developers, investors, land agents. Is that something that you're pushing forward in the future, whether that's for build to rent, sale or student?
Yes, absolutely. Like I say, we've got a number of investors at the moment. And we're always on the lookout for more investment. We've got a pipeline of some 7,000 units across Birmingham and the wider West Midlands. So we've got a big scheme over in Wolverhampton, 1,200 units Brewers Yard scheme, which is in collaboration with City of Wolverhampton Council and West Midlands Combined Authority, but always looking for funds, whether that be to come in on a forward fund and deliver build-to-rent schemes, whether that's to provide equity to hold and stabilise before trading out that asset afterwards, or whether it's to provide the equity and work with us to secure the senior debt to deliver to the sales market.
Perfect. So yeah, essentially always looking for more money and good people to work with.
Absolutely. You know, you'll see it on our website. You know, it's good people. Property is about relationships and it's about people, more so than it is about the bricks and mortar. So, you know, we can put the right teams together and work with the right people, then, you know, we can deliver some fantastic products.
Brilliant. And Chris, I know you've been with the company now, I think sort of 5 or 6 years, and obviously learned quite a bit since doing your sort of masters in real estate and obviously working your way up through the company with Anthony. But I guess the first 12 months was probably pretty scary. You probably thought you learned as much as you could learn. How's that compared to the last 12 months?
Oh, it's amazing. You know, it's actually, I was thinking about this the other day, it's longer than 5 or 6 years. I think August 2013 I joined. So
that long,
7 years. Yeah. And, you know, the first year was jumping in at the deep end. You know, Anthony had set up on his own. I'd come in off a master's. That was, you know, really the extent of my property knowledge. And development is not something that gets taught that much or that specifically, I think, in real estate masters.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of learning on the ground. So just had to be a sponge in that last 12 months. But of course, 2013, we were coming out of the Siberian economic winter that we'd had post 2008. Things were moving on the up, and
Yeah.
the sun was starting to shine. The last 12 months have been extraordinarily busy. Probably one of the busiest 12 months we've ever had.
Good.
Extraordinarily challenging.
Yeah.
Extraordinarily interesting. And I would like to say extraordinarily fun, actually. Never waste a crisis, as we say in our business.
Yeah.
And, we've been, you could call this you would call a pandemic a crisis, wouldn't you? But, from a property perspective, it's always throwing up all these different challenges. And it's really, really interesting. And the more experience that you get in these different types of environment, the better place you'll be to deal with them in the future. So we have seen, just to give you an idea of what's been happening for us over the 12 months, anything that we've had on site, like I say,
Yeah.
we've had over 500 units under construction during the pandemic, and we have been we've practically completed on those. We've been selling them at a similar sales rate to pre-COVID, if not slightly faster. The values are maintaining where they were
Yeah.
pre-COVID. We've got investment to go out and buy sites that are available, which is fantastic. We've been working very closely with Birmingham City Council to take sites through planning, and I think that process has been working really well.
Yeah.
Where we've started to see, and everybody that I've spoken to within the industry has seen the slight sort of slow down and struggle a bit, I guess, is it's just getting the commitment from institutional funds, whether that be on the build to rent or just the senior debt,
Yeah.
to commit to 75, £100 million spends and investment. They want a bit of certainty about what's going to happen, and we're in a big state of flux.
Yeah.
We've all seen recessions before, and yes, we have been in a recession, but more so on a technicality.
Yeah.
The
money's there.
Of course. Well, the money's there. The markets aren't fundamentally broken like they were in 2008. Of course, we're going to be in a recession, 2 quarters of negative growth. If we close the economy for 6 months, it's a no-brainer. But the good news is that a lot of the funding streams which we're talking to, that none of them are saying no. They're being very, very honest, which is really refreshing. And they're not saying no. They're saying, give us 6 weeks. We need to see what happens. And unfortunately, with every passing 6 weeks, there's a new tier system of lockdown, or there is just a full lockdown.
Yeah.
And we're sprinting 100 miles an hour, which is fantastic, and we're going some great momentum on projects, but also at the same time, getting that final bit of commitment to take things over the line before Christmas. I don't think it's going to be there, but I think Q1 next year we'll see, particularly with the news of the vaccine. Q1 next year we will see an absolute in lending and commitment from funds.
Brilliant. That's I say. And hopefully that sort of starts the year. I say, speaking to a number of people as well, all across the country, and I think everyone's really sort of getting more news this week with the vaccine as well. So yeah, I think the more we can sort of get news on that, the more sort of positive outcomes from that, the sort of quicker next year could hopefully catch it from this year and really push on and go forward. So if we can just for a moment focus on sort of build to rent as a sort of sector, as a very much a growing, and people speak very passionately about this. Sort of a few years was it PRS, was it build to rent, was it anything else as well? I think the UK is definitely sort of catching up other countries in terms of this is really a strong market for us. Obviously, you guys at sort of forefront of that as well. Do you think the mentality is sort of changing in the UK, that more people are willing just to rent because of all the benefits of the amenities and everything else they get with it, and not as many people are as focused on buying a home?
Yes and no. I think, and this is evidential. There's still plenty of people out there that want to buy and own their own home. Whether that be a house in the suburbs, or whether that be a city centre apartment, we are still seeing plenty of demand for that. But at the same time, I would also so that we're seeing plenty of demand for build to rent. You know, any rental product that's on the market, whether that is through the sort of 4 built out specific build to rent schemes that are in Birmingham currently, or whether that is through PRS, or whether that's just through private landlords. There is plenty of appetite through there, but I think it will only become a more interesting and more stable and viable and mature asset class over the next few years, because, as you say, there's a quality of amenity in there, but not just is there a quality of amenity, there's a quality of management, and that's the important thing there. You have a professional landlord whose entire business model revolves around providing having a nice clean amenity spaces, providing the right amenity spaces, making the community right, and making people feel like they're at home, making them feel like they're wanted and loved as tenants. You've all you'll have rented, I've rented, and we'll all have rented off individual private landlords in the past, and I don't think it's speaking out of turn to say that there's probably left a lot to be desired in many cases.
A few flats in London I could have done with a bit more of a lick of a paint, I think.
Yeah, exactly right. But when you've got these institutional landlords and these significant managing agents managing the entire block, everything about the maintenance and the management and the community of that property feeds into their business. That is their business. So it gets a lot more care and attention. And it's something that we as a build to rent developer are really trying to be as clued up on as possible. We speak to, all the different funds, all the different managing agents. What are people looking for as this amenity space? What's going to attract it, people to our development as opposed to other people's development? And, we've gone past where we were. And as I mentioned the point about maturity earlier on. We've gone past where we were 2 or 3 years ago when build to rent first really started coming forward. Before that, we were discussing PRS, which, was institutional funds coming in, but they weren't funding the development themselves. They were coming in and buying wholesale, effectively wholesale completed apartments, which is fine. But now we've got institutions coming in early doors. We need to understand what they think is going to differentiate, and that is not just let's put in a gym, let's put in a cinema, let's put in a communal kitchen. Well, that's not lazy, and not to knock the people that do it. They do it well, but we're starting to see more of, and we're putting these in. A dog washroom. There's articles which have come out recently about the attraction of being able to have your dog in a rented apartment. It makes it so much, you open up a lot more of the community, and it's seen as really attractive to renters. We don't want to go down the sort of a gimmicky route of doing things, but it's got to be a community. And how much amenity space would you, how much amenity would you expect if you were living in a suburb? What would you want to be seeing? Would you want a little cafe where you could go and sit and work? Would you want the gym? Yes, you want the gym. Is a communal kitchen, particularly in the pandemic, the right way to be going? I don't know. But what else are we seeing? We're seeing people working from home. So how does that actually impact upon the way that we design our buildings, our apartments? Is it an extra room in an apartment to work as a study, or is it a large space downstairs on the ground floor? Get yourself out of the apartment. Get yourself into a rentable desk. Does your fob for your apartment or the building, does that link to printers and things like that in a business center effectively? Those are all really important, because we're now starting to think people will be working from home more. I don't think we're going to see the massive sea change which everyone was talking about at the beginning of lockdown. The office is dead. I don't believe that for one second. But people will be working from home, and the key to it is, and everyone is more aware of and happy to these days, is the mental health side of things. You could be in massive danger these days of never ever leaving your apartment because you don't need to. You have your food delivered to you. to your door. You're working from your apartment. You're living in your apartment. You're watching everyone on TV. You've got Netflix. You've got everything. You don't need to go to the cinema. You don't need to go and do shopping. You don't need to go out to the office. So we're able to provide high quality amenity space both internally, like the business lounge, and externally, some green space for people to walk around. I think that's what is really important now to tenants.
Yeah, I think you sort of preempted actually one of my my questions was, how has this, I guess, last 6 months changed either sort of floor plans or amenities? And you answered it very well, because you mentioned a few times, I know it's on your website as well, people properties, and the people that go into your properties, you want that sense of community was another word that you used there. So you don't want people going into their room, their little box, locking themselves away, having the delivery sent to them, spending all day on a computer, spending all evening on Netflix, never sort of interacting. Obviously, at the moment, we can't interact as much as we can, but having those, I guess, outdoor spaces, whether it is a gym, whether it is a dog pampering sort of area, these must be things now you're very much more conscious whilst going through planning with Birmingham Council, Wolverhampton Council, whether, you have slightly less rooms, but then the rooms that you have are much better and much more sort of fit to a purpose for the modern client.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said earlier on, it's not about gimmicking. It's not about being knee jerk to what we're seeing. You've got to have a longer term view into the future. And it's not necessarily about, oh God, how do we design for COVID? Because if we're designing for COVID now, with all the news about a vaccine, COVID won't be a worry by the time those properties come out the ground. But it's looking into what could, the next time there's a pandemic, we don't want one anytime soon. Oh my God! But what could happen? And having that little bit of crystal ball gazing. But we've got a reality here which we can deal with, and we can plan into things, which takes away a little bit of that risk when you're planning for the future. Means there's less crystal ball gazing.
Yeah, and fantastic. And Chris, there's one site that you've recently acquired, which is, as you probably know, quite close to my heart in Digbeth. I've spent many afternoon and evening down into the Digbeth, and you guys have got the Irish Centre now as well. Can you tell people a bit more about that? Because there's a lot of obviously local listeners that will have spent time in and around that area and want to know all the things that's going on in Digbeth. Because if you drive down there at the moment, there's lots of empty shops, lots of empty sort of stores, but Birmingham's going through real rejuvenation at the moment, isn't it? And you guys are leading that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The regeneration of Digbeth and Derritend is important to the city. Obviously, the catalyst for that has been HS2, and obviously that's going ahead. And there's a whole heap of work which is going on in Digbeth and Derritend with ourselves, with Cole Waterhouse, with Hub, with Oval Group, to really regen that whole area. And we've been working very closely with the Birmingham Morris Association, Morris and Pat, there who are absolutely great guys. Because as you say, we're taking over the Irish Centre, or what's known as the Irish Centre. We've got those guys on board, and we want to understand what Digbeth means to their community, and how we can help them with that. And of course, next door to the Irish Centre is the Boring Tray, which we also own. We've got 995 residential units on there, 30,000 square feet of amenity. But some very exciting news, which will come out in probably the next 3 or 4 months, about partnerships that we're doing there to make sure that the Irish community are well represented. And there is we've already got the consent for Irish Heritage Centre, Irish sort of F&B offering in that location. But then going back to the Irish,
maybe we'll get you back on in March
itself.
for maybe we'll get you back on next year for St. Patrick's Day special. St. Patrick's Day special, obviously about the Irish Centre.
Indeed. No, I'd be brilliant. Very happy to do that. The Irish Centre itself, it's a it's a 48-story tower on there, which is 454 residential units, again, with some well thought out amenity and public realm around it, trying to tie that into Digbeth, and that'll be built to rent as well.
Brilliant. And Chris, to sort of just to close it off and to put you on on the spot, if possible, I know there's a million things you need to sort of take into consideration. What do you think the top 3 things are to consider in a build-to-rent development? The top 3 things you might look for, or that courts actually deliver.
First and foremost, well thought out and well considered apartments themselves.
Yeah.
You can't be cramming people into boxes. So they've got to be well thought out. The amenity space that is being provided, as I say, to get people out of the apartment should they so choose, but provide high quality amenity space, both internally and externally. But then, it's also building management. You got to make sure that you're managing that building correctly. You have a whole mix of different tenants in there from different backgrounds and all that kind of thing, but they will all be expecting the same high quality of building management, and that's the key.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Chris, very much for your time. So this has been Aaron Higgins. He has been Chris Keogh. Anybody that's interested in learning more about obviously what court do, they've got a fantastic website with loads of information. Anyone in and around the Midlands that's looking to get involved, obviously get in contact with Chris directly. But Chris, thanks very much for your time. Have a good weekend, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks very much. Cheers for having me, Aaron.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.